What is going on, Trash Talkers? We are back with another episode for you. Today, we're going to be reacting to NFL Network's Daniel Jeremiah's NFL Mock Draft 2.0 for the 2021 NFL Draft. We're going to be taking a look at some of the picks that he makes in the first round. We're going to be reacting to all of them and then taking a look at some of the ones that we disagree with. All that and much more coming your way right now. All right, Nick. Well, Daniel Jeremiah decided to come out with his NFL Mock Draft 2.0, and here we are. We have it available to us, and we're going to take a look at some of these picks here. And, I just want to take a look at some of these, and there are definitely some that are questionable at best, and I think we have to address them. But I definitely want to take a look at and see what he's got here so far at his second whack at the mock draft.
Yeah, Daniel Jeremiah being one of the biggest scouts for NFL Network. I mean, you've got to look at what he has to say and take it to heart because he knows what other general managers in the NFL are looking for as far as talent, but we'll be the final judges as to whether he hit it on the head or whether he's got some room for improvement.
That's right. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft 2.0. All right, so now that we're taking a look at Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft 2.0, we're going to start off with the obvious number one overall pick, Trevor Lawrence going to the Jacksonville Jaguars. I don't think either one of us has an issue with this at all.
Not at all. No, this is the right pick.
Yeah, absolutely. And, just looking at what we got going forward, the New York Jets pick at number 2, Zach Wilson, quarterback out of BYU. Listen, I personally think that Joe Douglas is going to try to build around Sam Darnold, but it could go the opposite way. He could look at a guy like Zach Wilson and say, we can't pass up on a talent like this, and he may choose to select the quarterback. So I'm fine with this one as well.
Yeah, I love the pick. I think they will go quarterback, and this is probably the pick they're going to take over Justin Fields, so I like this as well.
Yeah. Moving on to number 3, Jamar Chase. We're looking at one of the top receivers going to the Miami Dolphins here. The Dolphins definitely need help at the wide receiver position. Selecting Jamar Chase over Devonta Smith is that's the big question. I would say Devonta Smith here just because Tua already has the connection with him, but Jamar Chase is a big-bodied receiver. He's going to be able to play in the NFL, so it might be worth the pick here. I just think Devonta Smith would have been a better pick for the Dolphins, especially opposite Devontae Parker.
Yeah, I completely agree with you because they have the connection already, him and Tua, and why would you want to bring in Jamar Chase where he's going to have to figure out the system and figure out how to work with Tua? It doesn't make much sense to me, and I also think Devonta Smith's the better wide receiver. I think that he has more to offer and that he would be the better option, but I like the pick at for them going wide receiver. That's their biggest need right now, but I think Devonta Smith is the better option at this point.
Definitely. Moving on to pick number 4, the Atlanta Falcons taking Justin Fields. I'm fine with this. Again, I expected them to take Zach Wilson. If Zach Wilson's not on the board, Justin Fields is not too much further behind. So definitely a pick. The Falcons need to start looking at the progression for Matt Ryan and the fact that he probably won't be in the league for the next 3-4 years. So they have to have his replacement ready to go. Justin Fields will do just that.
Yeah, it's another great pick. I also believe Falcons are going to go quarterback, with whichever quarterback is available, either him or Zach Wilson. But yeah, again, I like quarterback here, and he's the last one left out of the top 3, so good choice.
Yep. Pick number 5, the Cincinnati Bengals select Penei Sewell. If Penei Sewell ends up dropping to number 5, this is what the Bengals were projected to get at number 2 or 3 where they were. So, to get them at number 5 is an absolute steal for them. They get to solidify the bookend for Joe Burrow, and overall, they start protecting the franchise.
I think this is the perfect option. Honestly, it's the only option for them at number 5. If Penny Swell's not there at 5, Bengals are in an interesting spot where they're gonna want to move out or gonna have to take somebody that they're not completely sold on. So
Yeah,
I like
absolutely.
I like this option.
Yep. Number 6, Kyle Pitts to the Philadelphia Eagles. So this is the first one that I have a major issue with. The Eagles already have Dallas Goddard and Zach Ertz. And now Zach Ertz is probably going to get released sometime this offseason or traded. And that leaves them with Dallas Goddard. There is no reason to have Dallas Goddard and Kyle Pitts on the same roster when you need so much help at the wide receiver position. And you have a guy like Jalen Waddle and Devonta Smith still on this board.
Yeah, I agree with you. Kyle Pitts doesn't make much sense here, and I don't think that they're going to be running a 2 tight end system. That's not what Jalen Hurts is going to work well with. They're going to need another wide receiver. Deshaun Jackson is gone, and I don't think I mean, Travis Fulgham's still there, but it didn't seem like he was working out once they got Alshon Jeffrey back and Deshaun Jackson. It seems like they're going to need another outside weapon. Maybe Jalen Waddle would have been a much better option here for them.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at what Daniel Jeremiah says underneath, he says he doesn't envision Zach Ertz being on the roster, which I agree with. I've said it multiple times, and he wants an outstanding tight end duo. Again, that's not the offense that the Eagles are running. That's not what this system, this quarterback is. This is not anything that they are supposed to be doing here. It doesn't make a whole hell of a lot of sense. The only reason they go Pitts is if Dallas Goddard also ends up leaving this team. You have to get a player like Devonta Smith or Jalen Waddle, especially since Jalen Hurts has a connection with them from his time at Alabama. I think that would be a huge misstep if they drafted Pitts at number 6. All right, moving on to number 7, we have the Detroit Lions selecting Micah Parsons. I believe that the Lions have a few other needs, but Micah Parsons going here, I mean, it makes a ton of sense. They need pass rush help. They need the middle linebacker position. They have to start rebuilding this defense after Matt Patricia destroyed this entire roster. It's time for the Lions to start rebuilding. Micah Parsons will be the general in the middle of that defense.
Yeah, I'm fine with this pick. He's the best linebacker. He's one of the best defensive players in the draft, and they have so many holes. It really doesn't matter where they go. They're just going to go best available, most likely. And Micah Parsons definitely fills a huge need for them.
At number 8, we have the Carolina Panthers taking Trey Lance. Listen, I don't think that they're going to take quarterback here. I think they have a lot of other needs. They have Teddy Bridgewater. I believe that they're going to sign him to an extension or continue to move on with him. I don't see them drafting his replacement. He's not too old. I really don't understand why people think that the Panthers are going to go quarterback here when Teddy Bridgewater was perfectly fine.
Yeah, Trey Lance here. He's identical to Teddy Bridgewater right now, and I don't think that Trey Lance is going to learn much from Teddy Bridgewater. Where you can say in a year or two, Trey Lance is ready to be the starter, and he's going to be a much better improvement over Teddy Bridgewater, and I feel comfortable with him. I don't think Matt Rule's going to go this way. I think they're going to try to get Teddy Bridgewater some weapons to truly see if he is the guy for them, or if next season they're going to truly have to make a change at quarterback.
Yeah, I just don't see them taking a quarterback. I see them having to focus a lot on that defense specifically. But we'll see how they
And
decide to move forward.
And if Kyle Pitts was available here, this is probably the perfect option for Kyle Pitts because they don't have a big tight end in Carolina and they've missed that. So I think that's something that they should really focus on if Kyle Pitts is there.
Absolutely, and that's who I projected there in our mock draft. I had Kyle Pitts going to Carolina because I thought he was the best fit. Um, you know, Carolina's used to having really talented tight ends there, and without one, they haven't really been much of anything. Greg Olson, got old and then he left, and now they're kind of left without him. I think Kyle Pitts would definitely help help them a lot. At pick number 9, we have the Denver Broncos selecting Caleb Farley here. I like the pick here. They obviously released AJ Boye earlier in the offseason. Chris Harris Jr. left last year to go to the division rival Los Angeles Chargers. So we have a huge opening here. It looks like the Broncos will have to choose between Patrick Surtain or Caleb Farley. Either one I'm fine with. I think they have to fix the back end of this defense.
Yeah, I like the pick here going corner, and like you said, it doesn't matter which one it is. They're both going to be very good. So they get the pick of the litter, and they chose Caleb Farley. I'm fine with it.
Yeah. Moving on to pick number 10, we have the Dallas Cowboys selecting cornerback Patrick Surtain. Again, I'm fine with this. The Dallas Cowboys obviously lost Byron Jones to the Miami Dolphins last year. The back end really, really struggled outside of Trevon Diggs, who was their rookie last year. You get the old Alabama cornerback duo back together again. I think that this is a match made in heaven. If Surtain falls to the Dallas Cowboys, their defense will be able to wreak havoc on the NFC East, and they should be able to get back in playoff contention.
Yeah, Trayvon Diggs was amazing last season, even though the Dallas Cowboys defensive backs were awful. If they get Patrick Surtain, you're solidifying your 1-2 punch, and then you can get some safeties either in the later rounds or in free agency, and they could solidify this defensive backs, and the Dallas Cowboys can make a strong push in the NFC East next season. So I like this
Yeah,
pick.
I like the pick too. The only thing I would say is that if they don't go corner, look for them to go offensive tackle here. But that's for another conversation moving forward. At pick number 11, we have the Cowboys' arch rival, New York Giants, and they're going to be adding to their defensive line with Gregory Rousseau coming out of the University of Miami. I like Greg Rousseau here. I think he is going to help solidify this defensive line. Uh, if they can re-sign Leonard Williams and bring in a guy like Greg Rousseau, this defensive line is going to create mass terror along the NFC East, and the rest of the NFC is going to be on notice.
I like Greg Rousseau only if they're able to retain Leonard Williams. Otherwise, I would go Kwity Paye here. I think he's the better, more well-rounded defensive end, and he'll fit much better. He'll fill that Leonard Williams role where he can play inside or outside, but he's a bigger guy and is an NFL ready player. Greg Rousseau has the ability to be near an Aaron Donald type, but he has so much raw talent and needs to be groomed and coached up. It's going to take a while, and I think if it's just him and Devon Hamilton on this defensive line, that Greg Rousseau is not the right pick here.
No, I agree. And, I just think that while Greg Rousseau is an amazing talent, he still has some development that he's going to have to go through. And with Joe Judge there, I expect that it's going to happen and relatively quickly at that. But you're right. It is a contingent pick on the fact that they need to re-sign Leonard Williams. All right, moving on to pick number 12, the San Francisco 49ers. Now, this is the first time I'm going to mention this, but Daniel Jeremiah did project trades, and I'm not too sure why he didn't have the Niners trading out here. I don't expect them to pick at number 12. I expect them to try to retain some assets moving forward or whatever the case is, but this number 12 pick is going to be huge for teams that are trying to move up with some of the players that are still available. I don't expect them to make a selection here, but he has them taking Rashawn Slater. And my biggest issue is that I believe that they're going to re-sign Trent Williams. I don't believe Trent is going to go anywhere. He wanted to go to San Francisco. He liked being in San Francisco. Um, it- you know, with Rashawn Slater, you're not going to draft him to slide him into a guard position at number 12. There's just no reason for that. And you're not going to throw him at right tackle because you've already got that solidified. So, I mean, essentially what we're doing here is we have to take a look at the pick and say, is there anybody else worth a pick here for the San Francisco 49ers? Personally, I think they need to move back because there's nobody here that fits what they're trying to do.
And even if they don't re-sign Trent Williams, offensive tackle is not the position. They need wide receivers. Devonta Smith and Jalen Waller both still on the board at this point, and I don't know how you pass one of them up. You need another weapon for whoever is the quarterback of the 49ers next season if they're going to succeed in the NFC West, because they've got a ton of competition and they're not keeping up with them on the offensive side of the ball.
Oh, I agree. I agree 100%. And, if the 49ers want to get back to the promised land, George Kittle is going to have to get healthy, but he can't be the only target. You're going to have to get Jimmy G some more weapons on the offensive side of the ball. All right, moving on to pick number 13, we have the Los Angeles Chargers, and there we go. Jalen Waddle, the first Alabama receiver off the board. The Chargers address somewhat of a need. Mike Williams can't really seem to stay healthy. They have Keenan Allen. You're adding to the weapons for Justin Herbert, who showed exactly what he can provide this franchise last year. I would have liked to have seen Rashawn Slater go here at this point in time. Um, I think that solidifying the offensive line in front of Justin Herbert is the most important aspect to this franchise as they move forward. But getting Jalen Waddle at number 13 with no other offensive lineman worthy of a pick here, I think it's a good pick.
Jalen Waddle's an interesting one because you mentioned Keenan Allen, Mike Williams are there. You're having a huge trio, but is that what's going to help this team improve? No, you need offensive line. I don't care if Rashawn Slater's gone. You've got to go Samuel Cosmi at that point. This offensive line has to protect your big investment in Justin Herbert, and they're not doing that here. Justin Herbert's going to get smashed next season if they don't get him some help on that O-line, and he's going to be asking for a trade next season. I think that this is just completely wrong on Daniel Jeremiah trying to go wide receiver here. You're trying to add to a position that's already deep. They need to fix either the defensive backs or you've got to go offensive tackle here. But they've got to help Justin Herbert out and keep him on his feet at all times. And not so you don't want him running for his life.
No, not at all. It'll be interesting, but the Chargers are in a tough position because they have to be they can be one of those teams that moves up and tries to go after a guy like Slater or and any of these other guys. But I believe that the Chargers have to make a move to again solidify that front in front of Herbert. At pick number 14, we have the Minnesota Vikings. Now, Daniel Jeremiah has Devonta Smith being selected here. So he would be the third receiver outside of Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson, who set the rookie receiving record last year. I don't understand exactly what he's trying to do here because they don't need to be 3-star wide receivers deep. I believe that they need to be fixing this defense. I mean, they lost 3 starting corners before last season. They lost their entire defensive line. Quiddy Pay is still on the board. I don't understand why we're going wide receiver, which is already a top area on this team, and you're not addressing some of the major needs when you have top tier talent still available at those positions.
Mike Zimmer's in the hot seat this season. If this team doesn't perform well, if they don't get close to the playoffs or make the playoffs, he's out. And he's got to, I know he's not the general manager, but he's got to get some help on this defense. You've got your top free safety who's a free agent. You're probably not going to re-sign him. And you're going to have to get some help on this defense because the offense has the weapons. Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen. You don't need to improve what's not broken. You need to fix what is broken. And Quiddy Pay would be the much better option here. You have Daniil Hunter still on the team. You've got to get somebody bigger to help him on the other side of that line, get some pressure on these quarterbacks, and help out your young cornerbacks.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't understand, like I said, why you would add to the strength of this team when you already have Dalvin Cook. Kirk Cousins feels comfortable with Thielen and Justin Jefferson. There's no reason to add Devonta Smith here. Um, all right, moving on to pick number 15, we have the New England Patriots, and this might be by far and away the worst pick of all of them. J.C. Horn, cornerback out of South Carolina, going to the New England Patriots. I understand what Daniel Jeremiah is trying to get at. He's trying to figure. There's no rhyme or reason for the way Bill Belichick selects players in his draft. There really isn't. So trying to predict what the Patriots are going to be doing is like trying to guess which way the wind is blowing when it's blowing 3 different directions. Um, I just take a look at this, and I think this was just a sail in. I think there's plenty of talent left on this board, and you're selecting a corner who is projected a late first, early second round draft pick. I just don't see the fit here. Even if the Patriots are looking to move on from Stephon Gilmore, J.C. Horn is not the replacement here. I believe that we have to take a look at what New England really needs. That's offensive weapon help, and with J.C. Horn going at number 15, it would just be an absolute stab in the back to Patriots Nation to have another corner instead of drafting an offensive weapon.
And even here, Daniel Jeremiah says Stephon Gilmore is on the trade block. Well, there has been no word about whether he's getting moved or not. No team has inquired about him. There is nothing newsworthy about whether he's getting moved. I just don't know how you can say Stephon Gilmore is probably not going to be on this team, so you need to get JC Horn. Even if Stephon Gilmore was moved, there are so many cornerbacks on the Patriots. This is one of their deepest positions on the team. No reason to go at this position. You're better off going with one of the second tier wide receivers than getting a guy like JC Horn here, but you're losing a huge weapon in Dietrich Wise, and you need to get a better pass rush. Kwity Paye is still on the board. Why is he not being taken here?
It's unreal. And again, we're talking about if we just scroll up a little bit, the last two picks before the Patriots were Jalen Waddle, Devonta Smith. We tore these picks apart, saying that these weren't going to happen. They don't make sense. I'm assuming that these guys are going to be on the board if everything else lined up. I just don't understand why New England would be taking J.C. Horn here. Nothing. These last three picks are absolutely abysmal to me. I just hope it gets better moving forward. Pick number 16, we got the Arizona Cardinals taking Elijah Vera Tucker. Vera Tucker is an insanely talented offensive guard. He is extremely strong at the point of attack, and he's going to help this team a lot. He's going to help protect Kyler Murray and also possibly create some holes for Kenyon Drake in this running game, which was almost non-existent the last year. Outside of that, though, yeah, I mean, it's a good pick. To me personally, guards are a dime a dozen. They probably shouldn't be going, unless your name is Quentin Nelson, you shouldn't be going in the first round. I just don't see Vera Tucker going at number 16 here.
Yeah, Elijah Vera Tucker. Guard's a need for them, but you're not going to draft guards like you said. They are very frequent. You can find a lot of them. Go get a tackle. You need a tackle. Sammy Cosme's still on the board. He's one of the best tackles available, and this would be the perfect pick here. Just like last season when they missed out on Mekhi Becton because they wanted to go best available and Isaiah Simmons, and we already see that he's turning into pretty much a bust at this point. They've got to get Kyler Murray some weapons. He was running for his life. He had that miracle pass to DeAndre Hopkins, but that was only because he had to run for his life. Otherwise, if they had a solid left tackle, he could have sat in the pocket and made a much better pass instead of getting lucky. They've got to go tackle here. There's no other option.
No, I agree. I mean, protecting Kyler Murray in the franchise is absolutely number one priority, and drafting a guard, while that helps, is not going to be the answer they need. You talked about Sam Cosmi, but you got to talk about Christian Darrisaw. You got to talk about Alex Leatherwood. Some of these other tackles that are also available. Tevin Jenkins. I mean, there's so many options at the tackle position. It's a very deep position. Why not grab one of those big behemoths and put him on the left side and help protect Kyler Murray? I just don't understand the pick here. Moving on to number 17, we have the Las Vegas Raiders. Kwity Paye finally coming off the board. Don't know how he made it to pick number 17. It doesn't make sense. Kwity Paye is one of the best pass rushing defensive ends we have in this NFL draft. He's going to be an absolute dynamite player. I personally don't think he would even get past New England if he made it to 15. But making it to 17, he is going to help solidify this pass rush with the Raiders. This was one of their big struggles last year, was not being able to actually get home to the quarterback. They got pressure, but they weren't really getting home. He is a guy that can finish the rush. He's going to be able to put pressure on players like Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, these guys that are going to be setting the league ablaze for the next 10, 15 years. He's going to be the ultimate counterpunch to their talent.
If we've seen anything from Mike Mayock in the last couple of years, he doesn't look for the best available. He always looks for the steal of the draft. He never plays it safe. And Kwity Paye, to me, is not only playing it safe, but also getting a position that you don't need. You got Cleveland Farrell and Max Crosby 3 years ago. You don't need to get Kwity Paye. Where does he fit in with those two guys on the outside? I just don't see it. He's not a linebacker. He is a defensive end. And I think that this is not a pick that Mike Mayock would make for the Las Vegas Raiders.
Yeah, I mean, Kwity Paye can be shuffled inside and be a 4-3 defensive tackle, but outside of that, I really don't, I just believe that his talent, if he makes it here to 17, there's no way you can pass up on him. Maybe you utilize him in trade packages or use Cleveland Farrell in a trade package somewhere. He just cannot keep dropping the way that this draft is going. I just we've torn apart the last 6 or 7 picks, and they just haven't been all that great. I assume he would have gone somewhere in that vicinity before he even makes it here. Looking at pick number 18, we have the Miami Dolphins taking Najee Harris. Uh, Najee Harris is a very strong, athletic runner. He has the history with Tua Tagovailoa from their time in Alabama. I believe that they're going to rekindle that if he is selected to the Miami Dolphins, which I have said that they should look into doing. The Dolphins will have a really good tandem at quarterback, running back, and wide receiver all set in the last 2 years. And then if you look at earlier in the draft, they did draft Jamar Chase. So you're really setting up this offense to be successful after last season going all in on the defense.
Listen, I'm not a big fan of drafting running backs in the first round because they are injured constantly. You can't always count on them. And I know Najee Harris might be a special talent, but he's definitely not the next Derrick Henry, and you can't count on him to be so. I think that they have other positions of need. You could Samuel Cosmi is still on this board, and it pisses me off that he has not been taken up to this point. They need to fix this offensive line still, and Samuel Cosmi would be a much better pick than Najee Harris.
Moving on to pick number 19, we have the Washington football team. And listen, they take another tackle. They take a tackle, Christian Darrisaw, coming out of Virginia Tech. I like Christian Darrisaw. I've taken a look at his film. He looks very solid. He's got a really low center of gravity, and he anchors down the tackle position really well. I think he's going to be able to protect whoever ends up playing quarterback in Washington. My only issue again is that the biggest need for this Washington football team? I, Listen, offensive line is great, but with all of these other teams that are passing up on tackle, it seems like you could possibly get one of these guys in the second round. So why not go after one of the positions that is flying off the board and try to get one of your guys at wide receiver opposite of Scary Terry?
Well, I think the issue is the top three wide receivers are gone at this point, and the rest are second tier wide receivers. So you can wait until the next round to go get one of them. I like the offensive tackle pick. Ever since they lost Trent Williams, they have been struggling to keep their quarterbacks upright. Kyle Allen, if they had a left tackle last season, might not have been hurt, and he would have been the quarterback moving forward. Now it looks like Taylor Heineke is going to take over as a starting quarterback. He's going to need some protection, and I like Darrisaw, but I also believe Samuel Cosmi is a much better tackle than Darrisaw. Nonetheless, it's a good pick here.
Yeah. At pick number 20, we have the Chicago Bears, and the Chicago Bears are in such a world of hurt right now. I mean, this offense, if there was a bigger mess in the NFL, I don't want to see it because this Chicago Bears offense is absolutely abysmal. The offensive line needs some help. The quarterback position is a huge question mark. The wide receivers have left and they are not coming back. Getting Kadarius Toney here, the wide receiver out of Florida, that's all well and good, but they have a lot of questions that they need to answer here, and at least they'll be able to hold on to him for 4 or 5 years. I just don't believe that they're going to be able to resign Allen Robinson, and they have to figure out this quarterback situation. When you have players like Kyle Trask and Mac Jones still on the board, I think that they were better suited taking one of those guys and trying to take a flyer on them than a receiver that's going to have nobody to throw to them.
Exactly. Yeah, there really is no option to take a wide receiver here when you don't have a quarterback for them to throw to. So I think Kadarius Toney, and even if you go wide receiver, why take Kadarius Toney over Rondell Moore or Terrace Marshall? I don't see it. I'd rather have a big receiver who has speed on the outside than a small guy who's running over the middle of the field. But I think that's what would fill the void of Allen Robinson much better. If you're going to go wide receiver, I think every team needs to boost up their offensive line to make it interesting for some of these free agent quarterbacks that are available. No one wants to go play in Chicago if you're running for your life, which is what Mitch Trubisky and Nick Foles were doing last season.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on to pick number 21, we have the Indianapolis Colts taking Greg Newsome II, cornerback out of Northwestern. And listen, Newsome is a really good corner. We're looking at the back end of the top corners here. Obviously, J.C. Horn taken at pick number 15. The Colts have a need that they have to fill here. We're taking a look at Xavier Rhodes possibly leaving in free agency. They're going to have to figure out a way to replace him. So Greg Newsome II is a good pick here. I believe it would have been J.C. Horn because most likely he would still be on this board. I just see that the Colts will end up replacing Xavier Rhodes at this point.
I am going to give Daniel Jeremiah the benefit of the doubt because this mock draft did come out before the Carson Wentz trade. Now that Carson Wentz has been traded to the Colts, you're missing corner and left tackle. Left tackle trumps corner every single day of the week. Samuel Cosmi's still on this board. This is exactly where he should go to fill Anthony Costanzo's hole. Him next to Quentin Nelson would be an absolute nightmare for any defensive end or defensive tackle.
Yeah, I agree. And just the Colts offensive line was tops in the league the last few years, and obviously the void of Costanzo is huge. So corner or offensive tackle, the Colts are going to have to now hope that a guy like Tevin Jenkins, Samuel Cosmi, Alex Leatherwood, some of these guys are still available when they go into the second round because it's going to be very hard to replace a guy like Costanzo on the left side, especially now with Carson Wentz and his injury history. Moving on to pick number 22, we have the Tennessee Titans taking Jalen Phillips, the edge rusher, defensive end coming out of Miami. I love Jalen Phillips. I think he's an incredible talent. I think he's a perfect fit for the back end of the first round. And the Tennessee Titans need a guy who can consistently get pressure. He's good at one thing and one thing only, and that is exactly that, getting pressure. He is a tactician when it comes to making sure that he can get around tackles, whether it's with speed, finesse, or strength. He has great hand placement, and his ability to get around some of the better tackles in college football has showed that in his production. He has been overlooked a couple of times in his life and his career. He has shown that was definitely a mistake, and I think the Tennessee Titans, with all the help that they need at the edge rusher position, take Jalen Phillips here. I think this is a good pick.
I like the pick. I'm going to be a little bit nitpicky. I would have gone Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah just because he's an outside linebacker and edge rusher. I think that he has the versatility that they were looking for in Jadeveon Clowney last season, and you're not going to resign Jadeveon Clowney, so let somebody else go overpay for him. I think that either Jalen Phillips or Owusu-Koramoah would fit here in Mike Vrabel's system, so I like the pick. You can go with either, and they'll work out.
Moving on to pick number 23, we have the New York Jets, and Daniel Jeremiah has the Jets selecting Ronnie Perkins, edge rusher out of Oklahoma. Now, I don't know much about Mr. Perkins, which is to say that I didn't scout him as a first round talent. So the fact that he made it up this far is quite concerning to me. Now, what Daniel Jeremiah says here is that Perkins is a very productive edge rusher who plays with physicality and tremendous effort. That's not who I'm selecting in the first round. That's a second or third round guy. I want somebody who is jumping off the page talent wise at any position that is going to help me win. The New York Jets need offensive line help in the worst way. Outside of Mekhi Becton, there are 4 other positions that they need to fix on this offensive line. You talked about Samuel Cosmi. I'll be the voice here for him. Again, Alex Leatherwood, Tevin Jenkins. We're looking at some of these players. They need to fix that linebacking core. You have Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. You have some of these guys that are available, and they're just not taking him. Ronnie Perkins at 23? Really?
Yeah,
I don't see it.
This is such a stupid pick. And first round is day one starter, not guys with high upside. This is
Right.
all about drafting positions in need. And like you said, they need a ton of help. And if you're going to go defensive side of the ball, how about defensive back where you just traded away Jamal Adams? You need to fill voids at corner or get an edge rusher. I'm going to keep saying Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, one of the best outside linebackers available in this draft with great pressure on the quarterback in college. He's a day one starter, not Ronnie Perkins.
Yeah, it almost seems like Daniel Jeremiah definitely had an agenda when it came to this mock draft because overall what we've seen so far is that he makes picks that work for some teams but some that are highly questionable in other places, and it's just absolutely astonishing where we've gotten so far. And that is to lead us into pick number 24 with the Pittsburgh Steelers taking Jalen Mayfield at tackle. Again, Sam Cosmi still available. Alex Leatherwood. We're talking about Tevin Jenkins. And why are we drafting Jalen Mayfield out of Michigan when you have to possibly replace Alejandro Villanueva and you lost Marquise Pouncey? This offensive line is starting to get into shambles outside of David DeCastro. We really need to button this up. I don't think Jalen Mayfield is the right call, but definitely drafting tackle here is the right call.
Yeah, I like the pick for tackle. The Steelers, when you look at their cap space and where they are this offseason, they're in a lot more trouble than one might think. And they're going to need as much help in the draft as they possibly can get. And offensive tackle is definitely one of their biggest holes right now. So I like the offensive tackle pick, but yeah, it's up for debate who you're going to take here with at offensive tackle.
Yep. Moving on to pick number 25, we have Jacksonville Jaguars, and look who it is, Jeremiah Owusu Koromoa, going at pick number 25, who should have never made it out of the teens. We're taking a look at the Jacksonville Jaguars getting Trevor Lawrence and Jeremiah Owusu Koromoa without having to trade a pick away. If that would be an absolute dream scenario for Urban Meyer. Plus, we saw what speed at the second level can really do for teams when we're looking at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and how they performed in the Super Bowl. Shaq Barrett, Levante David. We're looking at a guy just like that in Owusu Koromoa. I think that if the Jaguars can get him at 25, he will absolutely be the field general that they need in the middle of that defense.
I love this pick, and you already have Joe Schobert there, one of the best tacklers in the NFL. Him and Usu Koromoa together would be a fantastic tandem. Usu Koromoa would be able to get pressure off the edge along with Josh Allen. I love where this Jacksonville Jaguars team is headed, and Usu Koromoa furthers their agenda.
100%. Moving on to pick number 26, we have the Cleveland Browns, fresh off of their first playoff appearance in, I don't know, God knows how long. But the Cleveland Browns are back in it. They draft edge rusher Joe Tryon. Wow, I don't know who he is. Coming out of Washington. Tryon opted out of the 2020 season. Um, Again, it's just one of those things where I don't understand why you're selecting a guy that needs development, that needs time when you're in the back end of the first round, and there's plenty of talent still to go around. The Cleveland Browns have a lot of needs still. They may have made it to the playoffs, but they need to figure out some of these things here. I'm looking at the wide receiver position. I'm looking at some of the offensive line positions. I'm looking at some of those positions on the defensive side of the ball as well. They need some help, and this is not it. I mean, Joe Tryon coming out of Washington is not a first round pick, especially for the Cleveland Browns.
The Cleveland Browns especially don't need edge help. They have Myles Garrett and Olivier Vernon, who have been amazing for them. You don't need to add more help on this line. You need linebackers. That is where they got lost last season. That's the big hole they needed to fill, and they can do that still with plenty of linebacker help available. Why would they ever go edge here? It doesn't make any sense. He's not going to help them get better in any which way, shape, or form. I can't believe that he has them taking edge here when they are most deep at that position.
It's unreal, and I know that Daniel Jeremiah is a very smart person. I just don't understand where all of these picks are coming from. Uh, and needless to say, we're going to have another one here at number 27. The Baltimore Ravens taking on Trevon Moehrig, safety out of TCU. The safeties for the Ravens were perfectly fine last year. They cut Earl Thomas because they believed in those safeties and they performed really well. So why are they taking another safety at the first round pick number 27? If the pick's not there for you, move out of the first round. Get some draft capital to stock up on other positions. But there's no reason the Ravens are taking Trevon Moehrig here.
No, they shouldn't be taking Trevon Moehrig here. And why not go get Lamar Jackson some more weapons? Rondell Moore is still on this board. Terrace Marshall Jr. is still on this board. Why aren't you taking one of those outside weapons and getting them to put alongside Hollywood Brown and Mark Andrews to get Lamar Jackson some people to throw to? They need weapons if they're going to make Lamar Jackson work. And Trevon Moehrig does absolutely nothing for Lamar Jackson.
It's absolutely unreal. But let's move on to pick number 28. We have the New Orleans Saints selecting Mac Jones, quarterback out of Alabama. Take a look at our video on Mac Jones because I truly don't believe in him. I think that, there's a lot of false, prophecies about Mac Jones out there. Don't forget, he did throw to Jalen Waddle and Devonta Smith. He had Najee Harris behind him. His entire offensive line will be drafted in the first 2 or 3 rounds of this year's NFL draft. He had a ton of talent around him. I think out of everybody on that roster, Mac Jones is going to end up being the worst one out of them. The Saints can't select Mac Jones here. I understand the sentiment that you got to find the heir apparent to Drew Brees, assuming that he's not coming back. But at this point, they have Jameis Winston and they have Taysom Hill. I think you're better off moving forward with one of them than drafting Mac Jones at 28.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Right now, we don't know what's happening with the Saints, and they still need to cut $65 million of cap space. Who knows? There's going to be at least one big cap casualty for them, and we don't know who that is just yet. Whoever that is, that's the hole they're going to have to fill. This team is pretty solid all around the way it is, and Mac Jones is not the answer. It looks like Jameis Winston is going to be the guy moving forward. And I know he didn't have many reps with them last season, but he didn't look too bad. It looked like he was working well in that system. And I think he'd be the nice heir apparent to Drew Brees. Mac Jones, why are you drafting a backup quarterback at this point in the first round? Doesn't make any sense.
Not at all. At pick number 29, we have the Green Bay Packers selecting Tevin Jenkins. Again, Daniel Jeremiah got lucky with this one because the Packers just released Rick Wagner, and that came out after he came out with this mock draft. So, I mean, it works out for the Packers where they need to help protect Aaron Rodgers. But again, he has been begging and pleading, not for protection, but for weapons. Outside of Devontae Adams and Aaron Jones, this man needs other people to throw to. Alan Lazard started out strong, then got injured and did not come back the same player. Marquez Valdez-Scantling is not the guy. They have to go after, again, Rondell Moore, Terrace Marshall, Amari Rodgers. One of these receivers that's available, they have to go after him. Tevin Jenkins filling in at right tackle is not the play here.
Yeah, the Packers are in a sticky situation because, like you said, they need to get him some receivers, but they just released Rick Wagner and Christian Kirksey because they are in negative cap space. They need to make some cap room, and now once they get into that positive cap room, you still have a big hole at right tackle and a big hole at wide receiver. Which one do you fill? And Daniel Jeremiah thinks they're going to go offensive tackle. I would honestly, I kind of agree with him. I think that Tevin Jenkins filling that right tackle role is a bigger need because you want to keep Aaron Rodgers healthy. He was sacked the least out of all quarterbacks last season. They want to keep it that way. They got to the NFC Championship with the weapons they had, and even if they can get a small improvement at the receiver position, it's going to go a long way. So I really like going tackle here instead of wide receiver.
Moving on to pick number 30, we have the Buffalo Bills. Daniel Jeremiah has Azeez Ojulari going as the edge rusher from Georgia. The Bills are stacked at the defensive line position. Interior, exterior, doesn't matter. They have two full starting lines that they can put out there at any single point in time. That's 8 players that they can rotate in and out of this lineup. I don't understand why they would go edge rusher. He even goes on to double down on this sentiment and say that he believes that the Bills pass rush is the best fit for free agent JJ Watt, which again makes zero sense. They may end up cutting ties with one of these defensive ends, but these guys are mostly very young. They're very talented. You have Ed Oliver in the middle of that defensive line. I just don't understand why the Buffalo Bills would go with an edge rusher here when you can work on other areas that need improvement, especially if you're going to lose a player like Matt Milano. You could end up going with a player like Nick Bolton or somebody else at the linebacker position to help him out.
Yeah, I don't know what they would do here. I don't like edge rusher, like you said, it's the deepest position, and they don't have many holes. So you can go Travis Etienne, even though I don't like running backs in the first round. You could get that would be a great option for this offense to make them even more high powered. Or you could go linebacker. There's still linebackers available. Get a cornerback. Edge rusher should be one of the last things they should ever think about. I just don't like this pick here at all.
Moving on to pick number 31, we have the Kansas City Chiefs. And listen, them taking Landon Dickerson from Alabama is a bet. They're basically saying that they believe that Landon Dickerson will be coming off of his ACL injury and will be able to be just fine. Landon Dickerson, before the start of the college football season, was the number one interior offensive line player in coming into this draft. And then he got injured, and now he's falling to the back end of the first round. The talent is still there. You're just going to have to assume the risk and the responsibility to rehab him fully before he can get into that position. I think that the Chiefs are in a very enviable situation where they're going to get stronger over time. They're going to get Mitchell Schwartz. They're going to get Eric Fisher. Both of those guys will be back. They're going to get Laurent Tuverde Tardif back, assuming that he comes back to the NFL and plays. I think that adding Landon Dickerson is going to help solidify that offensive line. We saw Patrick Mahomes running for his life the entire Super Bowl. They have to get him some protection. Landon Dickerson is 20% of the way of getting that done.
I just don't like going offensive interior offensive line. I would Samuel Cosmi's still here, and I think that he would be great depth. As we saw, Eric Fisher went down right before the Super Bowl. If they had a solid offensive tackle in the wings, who knew this offense, they would have been fine. Patrick Mahomes would have been able to make better throws. He would have been able to sit in the pocket a little bit longer instead of running for his life. I would go offensive tackle here just to get some depth because you never know when you're going to need it. And then if you're not, linebacker. As we saw in the Super Bowl, Ben Neiman, their middle linebacker, was terrible. You have Willie Gay too, who was a late round pick last year and didn't look good. Like we see here, as we're going to see here at 32, Nick Bolton's being taken. Why isn't he being taken here at 31 to improve this linebacking core?
Yeah. And like you said, at pick number 32, the Buccaneers are taking Nick Bolton, linebacker out of Missouri. The Bucks are projected to lose Shaq Barrett at minimum, possibly Levante David as well. So now you're going to really have to focus on that linebacking core because they were huge and so instrumental in their Super Bowl win that you have to replace them in any way, shape, or form. Nick Bolton, Zaven Collins, Jabril Cox, any of these guys at the linebacker position, this is exactly what you're going to need moving forward. Tampa Bay Buccaneers need to rebuild the second level of that defense.
I honestly don't think Nick Bolton's going to make it this far. I think there's a lot more teams with linebacking needs that are going to go after him. And if linebacker is not available for them, I think Travis Etienne would fit in here. And I think that Tom Brady is missing a pass catching back. He misses James White. Yes, James White's a free agent this offseason. They could possibly get him, but I really don't think he's leaving New England after everything he's been through in his career with them. So I think Travis Etienne would be an amazing back for Tom Brady to work with next season.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to end this on a overall, I think Daniel Jeremiah, he made some really good picks, but there were a lot of picks, especially in the teens and later in the draft, where he kind of just fell off, and I didn't understand a lot of what he was trying to get after. It seemed like he cared about the top 10 picks, and then everybody else after that was kind of just shrugged off and said, maybe they'll just throw a dart at the board and select whoever it lands on. I don't really agree with that approach, and I hope that his mock draft number 3 will be much better. But until then, thank you all for watching. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell. We go live every single day. That'll be all. Peace and love.